In this video, we will show you how to replace the screen of your Xiaomi POCO X3 NFC. Replacing the screen of the POCO X3 NFC is moderately difficult, as all components, including the fingerprint sensor, have to be removed. Allow about 120 minutes in total. You will need the following tools to repair your POCO X3 NFC. Additionally, these tools can be helpful. You can find all tools and an original replacement screen for your Xiaomi in our online store at iDoc.eu. We've put the links in the info box. Switch off your Xiaomi POCO X3 NFC before the repair to avoid potential short circuits. To do so, press and hold the power button until a menu is displayed. Tap on Power Off. Your smartphone will now shut down within a few seconds. The POCO X3 NFC is opened via the back cover. It is made of plastic and is strongly glued. Note that your phone is no longer waterproof after opening it. To open it, you first have to heat the glue of the back cover. Run a hot air device, such as a hairdryer, evenly over the back cover's edge for a few minutes. Once the adhesive has warmed up sufficiently, you can apply a suction cup and pull it upwards to create a narrow gap between the back cover and the screen unit. Insert a flat, stable tool to widen the gap. We can recommend the iFlex for this, as its sharp edges make it particularly easy to insert. However, since you can also quickly scratch something with the sharp edges of the iFlex, you should switch to a plastic tool, such as the iPlastics, as soon as possible. Run the tool along the edges of the back cover and detach it piece by piece from the rest of the case. Place flat plastic picks in the loosened areas at regular intervals to prevent the glue from rebonding. Once the back cover is completely detached, remove it and set it aside. The next step is to unscrew the 11 Phillips screws from the plastic cover that is hooked over the motherboard. Use a spatula to carefully release it from its guide. Notches on the edge of the cover show you where to place your tool. In order not to accidentally cut off the camera module at the same time, you should push it down when removing the cover. Once the plastic cover is removed, the battery can be separated from the motherboard. To avoid short circuits during the repair, you should always disconnect the battery as soon as possible. To do so, carefully lever it off the motherboard with a spatula. Then disconnect the fingerprint sensor in the same way. It is located right next to the battery connector. Next, the speaker has to be removed. Loosen the 7 Phillips screws. Then carefully lever it out of its guide with a spatula and put it aside. Now both connectors of the connecting cable are exposed. Carefully separate them both from the mother and the USB board with a spatula. Then take the disconnected cable out of the device. The battery of the Xiaomi POCO X3 NFC is attached to the screen unit with an adhesive film. The film can be pulled out from underneath the battery via 3 adhesive tabs. Peel off the tabs from the battery surface first. Then pull the tabs outward. This allows the battery to be removed without the use of heat. However, the remaining adhesive film should be heated in order to remove it without damage. Run a steel spatula underneath the film and remove it bit by bit from the case bottom. Next, the camera module must be removed. It is connected to the motherboard with 3 connectors. Use a spatula to lever the connectors off the board one after the other. Small arrows on the board show you where to place your tool. Take the detached camera module out of the device and put it aside. Now also disconnect the front camera and take it out of its guide. The screen and antenna cable are still connected to the motherboard. carefully lever the connectors off. The small metal connector of the antenna cable is best removed with tweezers. Unscrew the single Phillips screw that additionally fixes the motherboard and the screen unit. Then remove the SIM tray by pressing the SIM tool into the small opening next to the tray and pulling it out of the frame case. Now you can carefully pry out the motherboard with a spatula. Place the spatula in one of the cutouts in the board. Once the motherboard is removed, you can continue with the USB board. First, pull the antenna cable out of its guide in the case frame. Then lever out the board and take it out of the device with the antenna cable still connected. Remove the slightly glued vibration motor by carefully running a pair of tweezers underneath it and thus detaching it from the case bottom. Also, the fingerprint sensor has to be transferred to the replacement screen. First, pull its rubber cover out of the guide and the case frame. A small nose shows you the best place to start. There's a plastic element underneath the cover that also has to be removed. Carefully lever it out of the guide with tweezers. Then carefully push the fingerprint sensor's button out of the case and pull it out, together with the integrated sensor cable. Be especially careful when doing this. The sensor cable is slightly glued in the guide and can be bent and damaged when pulling it out. You can find an original Xiaomi replacement screen and the right tools for this repair in our online store at iDoc.eu. Before you put everything back in place, you need to peel off all seals and protective films from the replacement screen. Start by putting the fingerprint sensor back in place. First, thread the sensor cable through the opening in the case frame. Then close the case frame opening with the integrated button. Attach the sensor cable back into the guide in the case frame and then insert the plastic element with the tweezers. The shape of the guide will help you align it. Then cover the sensor cable and the plastic element with the rubber cover. Again, the shape of the guide will help you with the alignment. Now put the vibration motor back into its guide and press it lightly. When inserting the USB board, make sure to place it at a slight angle. This is the best way to slide the USB jack back into the edge of the case, to make sure it sits level. Then push the antenna cable back into its guide with a pair of tweezers. Now you can also put the motherboard back into its guide. Doing so, be careful not to squeeze the screen or antenna cable. A damaged cable can lead to the failure of an entire component. Once the motherboard sits evenly, you can push the SIM tray back into the edge of the case. Make sure to insert it the right way around. It should be easy to insert. Fix the board with a Phillips screw in the screen unit and finally press the connectors of the screen and antenna cable back on. You should hear and feel them click into place. Be especially careful when attaching connectors and never press them down with force. Damage can lead to the failure of an entire component. Place the front camera in its guide and connect it to the motherboard. Then position the main camera module back on the motherboard and carefully press its 3 connectors down. Attach the battery's adhesive film to the case bottom. The black adhesive surfaces have to face downwards. Then put the battery back into its guide and press it firmly. Position the connecting cable over the battery. The labeling on the cable will help you with the correct alignment. Reconnect the cable by pressing its 2 connectors carefully onto the respective board. You should hear and feel them click into place. Be especially careful when attaching connectors and never press them down with force. Damage can lead to the failure of an entire component. Now put the speaker back in place. You have to hook its small lugs into the frame of the screen unit so that it sits evenly. You can then screw the speaker back in place. Press the connector of the fingerprint sensor back onto the motherboard. Then also the battery connector. You should always connect the battery last to avoid a potential short circuit. Finally, put the motherboard cover back in place. Its legs have to be hooked into the case frame so that it sits evenly. Finally, fix it with the 11 Phillips screws. Before you finally close your Xiaomi again, we recommend testing the replacement screen first. Turn your device back on and drag an app zigzag across the screen to make sure the touch works everywhere. Also check the function of the fingerprint sensor. With the help of our checklist, you can test other basic functions to make sure that your repair was successful. We link them to you in the info box. If something does not work properly, turn off your device and check again if all components are properly connected and screwed. If everything is okay, you can glue the back cover again. If the adhesive frame is still in good condition, you can simply reuse it. In our video, Reseal Your Smartphone Correctly, we show you how to remove the adhesive frame and attach a new one, using the iPhone 12 as an example. Align the back cover over the screen unit and press it firmly along the frame. It should sit evenly everywhere. To make the adhesive bond properly again, you should briefly warm up the edges of the back cover and weigh it down for a few minutes. You did it! Your Xiaomi POCO X3 NFC is now shining again. I hope the screen of your Xiaomi POCO X3 NFC is now shining again. If this video helped you, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. See you next time! You can find high-quality tools, spare parts and accessories in our online store. iDoc, everything for your smartphone. Find more helpful videos here.